It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. All right, so what else is in the news? Israel's government likely to approve a plan to reoccupy Gaza. Israeli media reports. The Israel Security Cabinet is set to meet today to discuss the next step in the nearly 2-year-old war that the Hamas terror group, with the Hamas terror group in the Gaza Strip, including the possibility of taking full control of the Palestinian enclave and operating military in areas that they have refrained from entering until now, the local media reported. And I know where this comes from. I saw yesterday, it said Trump is either all in or all out with this thing. Yeah. Which means we can't continue with the entire humanitarian effort that's being stopped by Hamas.
Right.
So take over the whole area or just wall it off and let them do whatever they're going to do in there.
Right.
And they're not going to wall it off.
No, they're not going to wall it off, and you'd also be just waiting for the next inevitable attack from Hamas on Israel.
Yep.
So, no, I think that's, I don't think you have a choice. I think this is really what they're forced to do. Their hand is forced. And if you're going to get control of the situation, you're going to get it. And I could see President Trump, talking to Netanyahu going, look, whatever you're going to do, you got to do it. Because if you think about the Gaza Strip, there really can't be a half measure. As you mentioned, it's either get out and then cross your fingers, ultimately wall it off. But, as you mentioned, that's not going to happen. Or you go in and you control it. And this is what they're going to do. Because beyond that point, if you don't have full control of it, you're always going to be you're going to see this globally. You're going to get this kickback more and more, like you saw recently, about the whole humanitarian effort failing and blah, 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 when we all know it's Hamas that is blocking that humanitarian effort.
An Israeli journalist, a commentator for Channel 12, the country's highest-rated news broadcast, quoted a source from the office of the prime minister saying that the decision has been made. We are going to occupy the Gaza Strip. Hamas will not release hostages without total surrender. If we do not operate now, the hostages will die of starvation, and Gaza will stay under Hamas control. The official has said Israel for months was at a crossroads, and let's be honest, it was not achieving victory of the or the hostages. The mandate for a deal was broad, but we did not get agreement, so we will go for occupation, he quoted. The reports of deepening the military operation in Gaza comes after months of mediated ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas appeared to have collapsed this week, and despite assurances by the U.S. Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, who visited Israel over the weekend, that he was working on a plan that would end the war. At times, he's useless, by the way.
Yeah.
But I don't see any. I don't think anybody actually that knows what's going on over there thought that anything else except either occupying and getting rid of Hamas completely.
Yeah.
Is the only way to ensure people don't starve.
Right.
But to sit there, it's an impossibility for Israel to sit there and be, instead of Hamas being responsible. Think about this. Hamas controls it. Everybody knows it. The blame isn't put on by the left on Hamas. We make sure the food gets to them.
Right.
The food's there.
Right.
And people know, they know that Israel, if people are starving, they know Israel will feed them. But the fact is, you've got Hamas in there stealing, profiting off the money, taking every opportunity to kill Israelis if they get a chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. There's no and then the media, trying to find one starving child and then make a big to-do of it and then get burned on it, New York Times. They're just looking to create a story that really doesn't exist. And they're putting it on Israel, and Israel is defending. Israel's been in a defensive mode and has been forced to strike out, for example, against Iran. But when it comes to Gaza, they had no choice in it. And now it's like, okay, Israel's completely to blame, and Hamas, who are they? We're talking about the Palestinian people. It's the Palestinian people. Yeah, but Hamas controls. No. It's the Palestinian people that's controlled by Hamas. No. Yes. And so if you can't win that argument and you can't win that war or that battle, then you win the war.
Yep.
End of story.
And really, this is the only move they have. And I anticipate it's a long-term occupation. You eliminate Hamas, and then you stay to make sure there's not a rebirth of Hamas. But there is no other option other than to wait, pull out completely and wait for Hamas to strike again. But you're not going to get the hostages if you don't go in.
No.
This is it, and they're really at the end of that whole thing, and Hamas will play this out as long as they exist. So make them not exist.
Yeah, I just don't know what other way you go on it if you're Israel.
Right.
You're between a rock and a hard place.
This is it.
You have no choice.
Right.
And so, like I said, I just saw an article that says we believe it because it was analyzing that Trump is either all in or all out, but this isn't working.
No, I think I firmly believe that's kind of where the president has been, especially since after bombing Iran. It's like, look, we did a massive, unprecedented thing here. Now you're going to have to do what you can control. Trump, telling Israel, I fully expect or fully believe it was something along those lines, and that is, you're going to have to either do this or not. This cannot go on forever.
Here's the NBC story on it. President Donald Trump is pushing for a comprehensive all-or-nothing ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. It would see the end of all hostilities and all hostages returned. His Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, told hostages' family over the weekend, no piecemeal deals. That doesn't work.
Right.
Now we think we have to shift this negotiation to all or nothing. Everybody comes home.
Yeah.
Witkoff had said the U.S. was looking to shift from a partial deal to a full-scale deal, but did not expand on exactly how that would happen. I believe what's happening, I think we're seeing the evolution of it.
Yeah.
The all or nothing is, this is the nothing, and now Israel has the go-ahead from Trump to go in.
Yep.
Do I have an error in reading this somehow? But when I saw the all or nothing yesterday and read that, I went, well, all or nothing means you get everybody back, all hostilities stop, and if they don't, well, then that question wasn't answered. Did Israel answer that then yesterday, by the time we got to yesterday afternoon, with they're going to go in and occupy Gaza? Because that would be the nothing.
Well,
we can't get nothing. We can't get anything.
And it's not a coincidence. This happens,
right.
Days after the envoy visits the area. Well, that's, again, not a coincidence. This can't go on forever. Because we all know it is Hamas keeping the humanitarian efforts at bay, intercepting that food, and that hostages are starving. And others may not be getting food that aren't hostages as a result of Hamas blocking that aid and taking it for themselves. Well, that's not going to play out politically for you if you just stay at this level. And I could see President Trump going, you know what? Do it or not. Whatever you're going to do, do it.
Well, in all these things, remember the criticism, that Trump has thrown at him. It's the same thing that you see the evolution of Iran. I'm still amazed that the United States did what we did with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
That still, it blows my mind that he did it and did it so successfully that it wasn't even an issue a week later.
Yeah, right.
Nobody was talking about it. Nobody was criticizing it, and so yeah, in a way we were doing we were. We've talked about Israel doing our bidding. We were doing their bidding there, which I'm not against. That was not a criticism at all of the Trump administration, but a compliment
right. Yeah.
of the Trump administration. But when you look at, the criticism that he has had on what's going on over there, I think he's come to the realization, just like he's come to the realization with Russia, that Russia doesn't want peace, that Putin doesn't want peace, and that the Hamas has no interest in peace at all. Mm-hmm. And he's given him enough rope. Yeah. And enough rope has gone by, and Trump is not an Obama or a Biden, which you would just keep giving them the rope for decades.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I believe that's probably what's going on. And so I think the when it all came out, like I said, 36 hours ago, Trump saying all or nothing. Well, I went, well, nothing means you're back at war unless you plan on walling off Gaza with 100-foot concrete wall all around it, with Israeli and U.S. military surrounding it all, with drones overhead ready to fire in. That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. That really is not an option.
And then let Hamas control everything inside there. That wasn't a possibility. So the only other possibility is then what Israel announced yesterday.
You go all in. I mean, it was inevitable. At some point, it had to be this. Post-October 7th, there really was no other way to end this other than to eliminate Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And, of course, they have to demonstrate to the world that what Netanyahu himself has actually said. Well, the Palestinian people, he has no problem with. It's Hamas. He doesn't, this, two-state solution garbage, but it is garbage, but a peaceful coexistence?
No.
Not as long as Hamas is in play. But he's talked about there can be a peaceful coexistence otherwise. Without Hamas, there's only one way to get there. This is it.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
This is the official start of the farmers market. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins and the administrator of the Small Business Administration, Kelly Loeffler, ringing in the start of the inaugural Great American Farmers Market Sunday on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Inaugural, as according to Secretary Rollins,
we don't expect it to be the only. We'll see you back here next year.
The 6-day event coincides with National Farmers Market Week this week and is the kickoff event for the year-long 250th anniversary celebration of our nation's founding.
Is there any better way to celebrate America than launching the effort with farmers representing more than 35 states?
More details about the Great American Farmers Market are available online at www.usda.gov/GAFM. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today when that announcement is made and how Trump responds to that. You know, yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe, Trump was asked about, does he believe there's a genocide? And he said, well, there's a war going on. There's a war going on, and in war, people are killed in wars, and we're going to do everything we can to feed, whoever we can feed. I saw one international aid organization come right out and thank everybody for the food and everything else, and they were blunt and said, this is Hamas.
Right.
Hamas is causing all of it.
Right.
And for the number of Americans and Democrats, whatever, that are on board, and with the history of Hamas compared to Israel, blaming Israel for this, by the way, I think that's part of what may be driving Israel to say, we can't win this, so we need to win it.
Yeah, that's my earlier point, is that you're not going to win this. Globally, the pressure is building on Israel. And there's only one way to end that pressure, and that is to demonstrate that, well, first of all, to eliminate Hamas, which is the direct threat against you, but then also demonstrate what Netanyahu has said. Without Hamas, there can be a peaceful coexistence of the people who live in Gaza, as long, again, as Hamas is not in control. And I don't know what that means in terms of a timeline for occupation. I anticipate it will be a while, because you're going to have to eliminate Hamas. That's not going to happen overnight. And then you're going to have to ensure that Hamas does not have a rebirth at any point. And as long as Iran is still able to, fund to whatever extent they can Hamas and their other proxies, then there's going to be that threat that at least it doesn't come from inside Gaza. You can at least put it a little bit further out and give your nation a better chance at survival. And
because
see where it goes.
the whole thing, as I was looking at part of the negotiations, were that Hamas wanted to set up a Palestinian state, which of course isn't a Palestinian state.
Right. Yeah.
It's the rebirth of Hamas, and wanted to occupy part of West Jerusalem, as their capital. And it was like, it's not going to happen. It's just
no.
But as you've seen it now. You've seen Witkoff, you've seen Trump, you've seen Netanyahu. All agree Hamas doesn't want a deal.
No,
that changes everything.
Yep.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Because the whole show becomes our podcast.
It's magic.
Right after our show's done.
Yeah.
Only takes a couple minutes. Couple minutes after the show's done, our podcast is up.
Yep.
And going. So get the Red Eye Radio app today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Vivek Ramaswamey yesterday in Cincinnati. And did a forum. And this is about, as we know, the attack the other day on that couple and the racial undertones and all that.
Yeah.
And the Ramaswamy put it on his own page, X page, where he said, "A black man in Cincinnati challenged me tonight on why our country sweeps under the table the past wrongs committed against African Americans while paying way more attention to the wrongs committed against other racial groups." All right, here's that conversation. Here's Ramaswamy's response.
Robert, look, I want to thank you for one thing out the gate, is that I said this at the start. I don't think anybody think I planted Robert's question. We didn't plant the questions tonight. We have promised an open and candid conversation. Sometimes that makes us uncomfortable. I felt a little uncomfortable as you asked that question, but that's what you should expect of your leaders, to be able to engage with you. So let me say a couple words. First, about the pride of this city. Christopher, you mentioned it at the outset. Cincinnati was the end of the Underground Railroad. Have we been perfect for all of our national history? Of course we're not perfect. In fact, we're destined to never be perfect, because we're not a nation comprised of gods. We're a nation comprised of human beings. And we're a nation founded on a set of ideals. So that means you will always be imperfect, because nobody ever criticizes China or Iran or whatever for hypocrisy. Because to be a hypocritical nation, you had to have ideals in the first place. So here's what I'll tell you, Robert. And am I going to say America was perfect for every chapter of our national history? Of course not. We're a nation founded on ideals. We're a nation founded on human beings who will always fall short of those ideals. But I would rather live in a country that has ideals and falls short of them than to live in a country with no ideals at all. And I'll give you a chance to respond in a moment. Do I think we should sweep the parts of our history that make us uncomfortable under the rug? No. Just as I don't think we should sweep last week's history under the rug. No. We have to confront what is true, not just when it makes us uncomfortable, but precisely when it does not. But the question is how we move forward. Because the only part that lands with me a little bit differently is when you say our people. When I hear that, I'm thinking about our people as everybody in this room. I see black, white, brown, man, woman. These are our people. America is our people. Ohio is our people. Cincinnati is our people. And I believe it is the God-given right of every person to be able to live a life free of violence, to be able to speak their mind in the open without fear of retaliation. And may I even say, if you're a hard-working American, to go into your city, whether you're black or white, without fear of actually being assaulted or battered, that ought to be the birthright of every American. That's what I want for our people, Robert. And I appreciate you asking that question.
All right. The only thing is, because I listened to the guy's question and he talked a little slow and got to his point, but he basically was saying why our country sweeps under the table the past wrongs committed against African Americans while paying more attention to the wrongs committed against other racial groups. Mm-hmm. If you buy the premise, well, then everything that he may say after that might seem right.
Right.
But to say that we have swept under the table completely the past wrongs committed against African Americans couldn't be more wrong.
Right.
You took a generalized you generalized a statement that cannot be corroborated by the facts of what society and how society has changed over the last 80 to 100 years in this country.
Right.
It's a completely different country than it was way back then.
Oh, sure.
The racism, the bigotry that existed back then, the amount of money that we have put in for poverty to the point of the fear that exists, the legitimate fear that it's done the opposite, that we've created by giving people, by looking and saying, okay, what we've done is wrong, and by throwing trillions of dollars and believing that money is the solution to that. And that today, the problems that anyone has must be based that the United States is a horrible country.
Right.
Just doesn't stand up, to the facts.
No.
I had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago when I went back to New York. It was actually pretty funny because my ankle is really hurting. I'm limping into the elevator, and this older gentleman was there, and we said something about age, and I said, I bet you I'm older than you, even though he did look a little bit older than me, and I had him by a couple of years, but we started talking in the elevator, and then I saw him later on down in the lobby, and we get into the conversation. I have his card. I've got to contact him from Nashville, and he's like the head of an entire mentorship about men being involved in young men's lives.
Yeah.
And we got into a conversation. It was a great conversation on that, and got into the conversation. He's black, by the way, and I bring that up because of the known challenge in the black community of fathers being a part of a nuclear family, which is one of the reasons we're against where the left is going today, as we brought up yesterday, where the nuclear family they want destroyed.
Right.
They don't want men in families. We talked about the importance of men, and as we had the discussion, I said, look, it's not skin color, it's culture.
Right.
Nothing is skin color. It's all what we learn. It's all what we're allowed to do.
Yep.
It's the pathology of dependency. It's everything involved in there. He agreed with everything, everything that I was saying. Eventually, you have to stop saying, I'm a victim. One of the problems with the Democratic Party is the fact that they live by the victim-oppressor relationship, that everything is because you're a victim of what someone else did. You never have to take responsibility for yourself, because it doesn't matter necessarily what your social economic class is. There have been people, black, white, whatever, that have come from poor families, that came from a hard work ethic culture, that make it beyond anywhere where they ever thought that they could be. They never viewed themselves as victims. Their parents didn't allow themselves to be viewed as victims. Their parents told them, you can decide where you go in life. You can control your own fate. We have an entire establishment of a political party that says, and we know it, and it's just not whether you're a minority. It's whether you're a victim if you're a woman. You're a victim. Well, you're definitely a victim if you're a woman, because you got to do what the man tells you to do, as we know with the radical transgender movement. If you're a part of any of their marginalized groups, which can be almost everybody except white men, well, then if you're not succeeding in life, it's somebody else's fault. It's never your fault. Or if you look at it, the majority of times, it is your fault. Are there legit victims out there? Of course there are. Are the majority victims? Nope. Not of the state.
Nope.
They can be victims of their parents.
Well,
they can be victim of people that abuse them.
There are real victims out there. This is one of the things that we pointed out over the years, is that the left wants you to be a victim, to create a reason to be a victim. Well, the world is filled with victims who are victims for legitimate reasons. But the left needs more and more victims, because They need to be the heroes more and more. And they need people to believe that the world is a bad place, that everybody is racist, everybody is bigoted. And like Ramaswamy, you heard him say it. When you say our people, well, our people is our community. It's everybody.
And when I had a great discussion with this gentleman who heads the mentor program in Nashville, wonderful conversation. We were talking about culture, and I told him about, and you know about it, I've talked about it on the radio, a young woman who I consider my younger sister and another one who I call my chosen daughter. And these are they were young women when I met them, and both circumstances. One was homeless, 15, I think. And parents drug addicts. Same with the other one, parents drug addicts. Both white. Both their parents completely abandoned them. Skin color's got nothing to do with it. Culture does. Who allows parents to do that with them? And they've both grown up, and I've been, I guess you could say, in a way, father figures to both of them or mentors to both of them throughout the last, really, one of them about 22 years now, and the other one probably 15 years, I'm guessing, maybe 12, 13 years. It infuriates me. It infuriates me that these parents basically said, to hell with another human being who's our child.
Yeah.
But were they victims of the state? Was it the country's problem, or was it individuals' character? Who are their parents, those individuals, who were to blame for it? And we had a great conversation. I said, yeah, when I met them, I said, I guess it is my responsibility and obligation once I met them to help them, but that's not why I did it. I did it because to see them today and where they've gone and how they've grown, you can't manufacture that kind of joy. To see what they've become, to see the hell that they both went through and see where they've come today. So, again, when somebody says, tries to make it seem that in 2025 that we've, in this country, swept everything under the table when it comes to discrimination is just not a coherent look at the history of this country at all. Just not.
No. But the thought is a learned behavior.
Yes.
It is part of
Absolutely.
the indoctrination, which, again, the left wants people to believe that if you're a person of color, you are eternally oppressed, that if you're white, you are racist.
Yeah.
And there's no changing it ever, period. Oh, my gosh. There's zero room for progress in that mindset. That's the whole point, by the way. Because if they have permanent victims and oppressors, well, that's their entire game.
Well, and that gentleman who asked the question, because the meeting was held because of the violence that was held. If you're trying to say that the violence is justified because everything has been swept under the rug of racism by the United States, that's just not true.
No, it isn't.
There's no basis in fact on that at all. So when you start with your question, that's how I would have answered a little bit different than Ramaswamy.
Right.
Yep. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Will be interesting to see what happens and how the White House responds if Israel comes out and says, okay, we're going to occupy Gaza. That's what we're going to do, which means there's going to be a lot more battles, going on, because the goal at that point has to be to get rid of Hamas. And if they have said that's where they're going, then I'm assuming by what I've heard the president say over the last 48 hours, he's in agreement with them.
I think that discussion has already been had. Yeah.
Yeah.
What the White House says about it, I think you can probably, most people already know that the president is going to stand with Israel, but also that the president wants whatever they're going to do, get the job done. And I don't think they have any other choice with this occupation of the Gaza Strip and to take out Hamas. We'll see where it goes from here.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.